Okay, we have our first video, our first tutorial video, and I'm showing you just basically how I set up my charts on TradingView. I think probably even if you're new, you probably know what TradingView is, but it's a free package. I do think if you're serious about trading and you use it a lot, because you could be serious about trading but have another platform where you already have all these tools. But if you use TradingView a lot, I think you probably need at least the second or the third paid program. Right now I have the second, or basically the first paid one, but the second program, because it limits you otherwise a lot, including the amount of indicators you're allowed. I think you have 3 with the free version, and at least you get 5. I think it's still way too limited, as well as the amount of windows you can have side by side. That's still only 2 with one of the paid versions, and then you have to pay even more to get 4 and even more to get 8. So I love TradingView, and it's great as a free program. I think they give you a lot of value, but I think they don't give you much value for the pro versions. But yeah, and you could do a cheat. You could have maybe look it up on the internet. I may do another video about it, but you can have on your browser. This is the desktop version, but on your browser you could have like any amount of tabs and have them side by side, like whatever configuration you want, 4 on top, 2, 6, 8 at the bottom. You could do that with some tricks. You can look it up. There are some people who made some videos about it. So in that case, and I'm using Vivaldi browser when I do that. I think it's not possible with Chrome or Firefox, but maybe it is. So you could have as many charts as you want if you're using the browser and you do that trick. But otherwise, you only get 1 with the free version, and I think 2 now that what I have, and then you could go up. Plus you get 5 indicators instead of 3. And for what I'm gonna do today, you probably only need 2 indicators, maybe a third one. This one that shows the Asian and the US session, but I'm not even going to focus on that one. It's mainly these 2 volume indicators, the green lines and this, you could say, turquoise, or this blue line. That's VWAP, and the bands, that's the VWAP bands. So that's a certain amount of standard deviation removed from the average price. That's what VWAP is, but then it's weighted by volume, so it's more useful. It's not just based on an arbitrary average amount of candles, like a 50 EMA or 100 EMA. It's still useful. I use it a lot, but it's still relatively arbitrary. And VWAP is based on volume, so that's the first volume indicator that I use. If I hide the other one, I think it's just off screen, but if you go all the way to the right and the bottom, you see a bunch of layers, and that's the object tree, and then you get all the objects on your chart. If you have a lot of drawings, you see them here as well, and you can select multiple ones, and you can group them. Only the indicators you cannot group. You can only select one at a time. You can turn them on and off. So let me turn the volume profile off for a second. So this is basically the main one, and I also tend to use it on TradingView. And again, yeah, it's basically, I think, a more accurate, more useful EMA, basically, because it's based on volume. So if you get a big price action with no volume, it's not going to weigh as much as massive volume, and that's usually institutions. So it's more useful, in my opinion. The amount that you set these standard deviations, you have to try it. You can even change them. Well, you could do it from day to day. I mostly try to stay away from it because I want to sort of get a feel of how something works and how much I should adjust my trading style, and you can't really do that if you constantly change it. But I do also usually have a second version of it on a different monitor, or in this case maybe on another chart, on a second split screen or whatever, because one is usually not enough. I think 2 or 3 would be nice, but even with this Pro version I only have 5 indicators, so otherwise I think I'm gonna upgrade soon, but otherwise I probably would have just put on 2 or 3 different ones, so you can just have multiple VWAP bands. Basically, if you have watched my videos, and I got that part, by the way, from Trades by Matt. He, I think, I'm not sure, but I think for futures trading, he's the biggest channel for now, I think. But Buy by Money is also a good one. But I think Trades by Matt trades a bit more like me, except I do a lot more scalping. He also scalps, but he tends to hold longer, but he also tends to have a lot of drawdown. But if you look on Trade or Fade, and that's what you also get if you use TopsTep, the funding company, the prop firm, there's an indicator where you can have 2 or 3 VWAP bands. So that's nice. And here you only get one at the top, one at the bottom, but at one amount. In this case, I have it set to 1.5 standard deviation. But you have to try what works with the market you're trading. This is the Nasdaq, and I have set it to the US 100. You could also set it to the futures chart, but then maybe a continuous one. There's an NQ here. I think I have it here. A continuous NQ chart and a continuous ES chart. So it just has a 1 and then an exclamation mark. If you do add symbol here for NQ, for example, this one, that's a 1 and an exclamation. That's a continuous chart. So it doesn't matter what month it is, it will always continue. And that's the nice one to basically not. I basically don't use it for this chart, to be honest. I use it for the empty, empty chart without any indicators, like this, and then just draw the levels. Just draw levels. Usually only 2 tools, the ray and how do you call it? The box, the rectangle thingy. So I usually only use the continuous chart for this, because the nice thing is you don't have to update it, right? Because you can use it the whole year, throughout the year. Whereas the active front month of your futures chart, those you have to change every 3 months. So I like to have this one for continuous and draw the levels and stuff. But in this case, for now, for the tutorial, I'm just going to show it all of it on the same chart. But yeah, you could use either the continuous futures one, but I think I didn't like it because I think you cannot backtest bar replay. Oh, you can. There was something with it that I didn't like. Maybe it wasn't live, or there. I think it wasn't live. If you don't have any paid account, either in this case when I trade TopsTep, I can use it without delay, and if you pay for data, then it's also not delayed. But in that case, I just go to the Forex version, which is US 100, and the ES would be US 500. But yeah, so one indicator is the VWAP. You have to experiment. I like one, I like sometimes two on when you have very strong trends and markets. But most of the time I do the 1.5 standard deviation. And then usually I have a second monitor, second window. I think on this one I also have VWAP. If I go to the layers, the object tree here, but I just turn it off so it doesn't get too cluttered. But if price is far away, this is by the way the weekly VWAP. But if I if price is far away and I want to see it with a bit more with a bit larger range. This one, for example, is the 2. So this one at 1.5, this one at 2. So I can get some move that look overextended on the 1.5, but on the 2 it may still look good, you know. So sometimes I turn that on, but most of the time I stick to the weekly VWAP. That's this one. And there are multiple ones you could use, but I have this one. It's called multi-TF, multi-time frame, anchored VWAP bands. I don't know why they call it anchored. Well, I guess it's anchored to the start of the week. Then it resets. And the nice thing is you can have weekly, you can have monthly. You can set it up however you like. But then you get a bit more overall market trends, you know. So with larger moves, this one was also a nice one. Even though I think it went up in the end, yeah. But you still got a nice move. Whereas if you look on the other side, it was way outside of this VWAP. And even if I had a larger VWAP, like 2 standard deviation, that one would probably be here. And price went further and further. And you would have had no ID. If you don't have any levels drawn, you would have had no ID. Whereas if you looked here, you would be looking for to see how it reacts to this weekly VWAP. And if you see some nice rejection, maybe on a smaller time frame, then yeah, you could trade, you know, pull back. But or the other way, when it starts to paint higher highs and starts to break out, maybe you trade a breakout trade or the break and retest. But yeah, we're mostly going to focus on oh, wrong one. On the VWAP, and then the second one is also volume based, and that's this one. That's a volume profile. Oh, this is, by the way, the regular VWAP. There are also other ones, maybe with more functions. So let me know if you have a better one, maybe that has multiple bands that you can have, not just one. So that would be nice. Just yeah, share if you have other better setups. But I'm using only 3 indicators, by the way, so anybody could replicate it. And the other volume one that I use the most is volume profile session, which is also built in. I think it's actually from TradingView itself, and not a community indicator, but from TradingView itself. Not going to go too in depth with it, but. And I have it set to pretty large bars, so not a lot of detail. On TopsTep, for example, it shows more detail, but then usually I'm scalping on a very small time frame, so it kind of needs the detail. Here I'm looking more for the bigger picture. So I'm looking for things like, you know, where's the point of control of the previous day, and if we get there, do we get another point of control there? Because usually it either then breaks out, which is still a good move, even here where it didn't continue, you know, where it breaks out and then tests that point of control, you can still get a move out of that. You also see how useful VWAP can be, you know, you see the rejection here, so maybe you're more careful and are not going to expect that it's going to continue. But yeah, this is the point of control where most of the volume, so this changes during the day, as well as the whole volume profile itself. And I've colored the blue part, the one where there is also 1 standard deviation in both directions, which is technically it's 60, it's 2/3, so 66%, 67%. You could do 68%. For now, I have it set to 70, but something in that region, that's probably what you want. and it works a bit like VWAP, but then this is on a fixed, on a fixed scale throughout the day. So it creates these bars, and they can go up and down based on how much volume is being traded there. So when it gets there, you mostly use from the previous day. I use mostly from the previous day until you've really built a lot of volume during the day, and then maybe this can be useful. But otherwise, I mostly look at the previous day, like the previous low or a high volume node, and see how it reacts, and if you can get a bounce, or if I prefer trade with the direction. You look for it to go to retrace, maybe to a low volume node, and then continue, or if it breaks a big volume node, that can usually be a continuation. And when you get these multiple ones in a row, especially let's say you get multiple ones on a down move, and they stop going down, this one would have been a failure, but usually that means a move up. In this case, this one was a failure, but you got it here a bit, They stopped this volume point of controls, the yellow line, stopped going down as much, and here even started going up. So then, you are looking to see if it breaks and if it holds to a move up. But that's basically in short what I mostly trade, and sometimes I have EMAs and some other stuff, but that's primarily what I trade. And I do have one additional, and that's mostly when I'm really scalping. I just have, there are many MACDs. I've removed the MACD lines, so I only have the histogram. I wanted to say Instagram. So I only have the histogram, but MACD, diff, histogram, the version. So if you want to search for it in the in the indicator library, another free one, basically it's just the histogram, or I think you could show the MACD lines as well, but I just have them turned off. And but they show divergences, both hidden, it shows an H or an R with a regular divergence, and it's mostly on the smaller time frame, but sometimes I see it on 5 minutes and up. Sometimes on the higher time frame you also sometimes get nice entries, but it's also not blind. You should take it like here, massive divergence. Oh, actually, you got the move. And this one was the one we just said that also lined up with here. So those are nice trades, So you got a double top on the MACD that went down, whereas price went massively up, and you had a nice weekly VWAP band. So you did get a move out of it, but it's mostly, you should take it, in my opinion, in the direction of the trend, or if it's really ranging, then you can take him in both directions. But otherwise, for me, it's mostly for taking, waiting for a pullback and then trading the continuation. And ideally, I like if it then also is, for example, and that's how you can combine everything, if it's also above VWAP. So in hindsight, you can see that this sort of went up. It went massively up, but you also see it can really dump still. It's still not clear what it's going to do here. So you could use these VWAP bands to trade off, but at some point, especially when it's not clear what direction the market is, you can have these big moves. So you have to be careful with that, and that's why I kind of like to combine multiple things. And you can see, I don't know if this node already showed up, this large volume node, but it's holding up. You could also look at this. This is also a major area where bulls and bears were fighting it out, and then you're basically looking to see which one breaks, which one has a clean engulfing candle, for example. And if it breaks here, you wait for a pullback and then you sell it. But if it breaks, and you didn't really get a break in my opinion, because these are still wicks, but you need to get some sort of higher low here, and then you can also see that the MACD is curling up. I don't like this one as much. You had a very tiny MACD here, red mountain, red wave as well, but this one wasn't as clean. But sometimes you get a nice clean double bottom and the MACD, and ideally also with divergence, and you can take those, or you even wait till it goes back to VWAP, and now we even see a hidden divergence, and then you take it here, for example. So you get some confirmation first that it reacts to VWAP, gotta hit a divergence here, yeah, and then you could take it up, for example. But yeah, and even on smaller time frames, because I sometimes use the tick chart. Because of my settings, it squeezes it a lot. That's a bit annoying. So you have to manually and again, I tend to like at least a double bottom or a double top before I go in. Here you get 1, 2, and then it went up. Here it wasn't as clear, but it tried to go up again here once, and then the second time you could take it. Even when it came back, it still held, Or you could do it even till you get this divergence, massive divergence here. So yeah, I don't use it alone, but in combination with the other indicators. So yeah, that's it. So I hope was useful. We'll probably go on over some more detailed stuff and specific trades in some other video. So catch you later.